Welcome everyone. Would love if you could check into the chat box where you're tuning in from, and if you're a part of a startup, what startup you're a part of, and also to start having a think on any questions that you might have for Samantha, which we will get to in the second half of the webinar. Cool, awesome, yeah, great. We've got quite a few people jumping in now. Welcome, yeah, I am Lilia from Territory 3 Kiwi Landing Pad Reimagines. Today we've got Samantha Gadd, who was founder of Humankind and is also now founder of the Employee Experience Design School, which is super exciting. And just a quick shout out to our sponsors for helping to make these webinars happen. NZ Trading Enterprise, BNZ, AWS, Evander Management, Jasmine Holdings, and K1W1. So thank you to them for helping to support Territory 3. Now I'd love to just pass over to Samantha to do, just a quick background on, where she's been with Humankind and what she's working on now with Employee Experience Design School. So over to you to do a little bit of a background.
Thanks, Lilia, and it's great to see you, albeit via Zoom today. So my name's Sam. I have spent the last 10 years growing Humankind, which is a professional services business supporting organisations around New Zealand to create better workplaces. Prior to that, I spent the earlier part of my career in HR roles, and in my last HR role, I was working at Bell Gully as looking after the HR for their Wellington office. That was quite some time ago now, though. Between then, I did a bit of independent consulting, and I also trained to become a life coach, which has definitely shaped a lot of what I believe and my purpose still today, which is to really help people to love what they do. I really believe everyone should love work, and so it's just that's just then turned into multiple different businesses. And yeah, the next journey that I'm going to be on is going to be equally, if not more, exciting.
Amazing, cool. I'd love to hear a bit more about how you started Humankind and forming your team, raising capital. What did that all look like, and how did you come up with the idea in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So Humankind's just turned 10. We're actually celebrating our 10th birthday as a team next week, which is something to look forward to. I started Humankind. I've been in HR for some time and had left my last permanent job to go out and do some independent contracting, and then noticed that so many small and medium businesses, and I know probably businesses on this call, growth companies, really need access to great people and culture expertise, but can't really afford nor really justify bringing in a permanent full-time HR manager. So at the time I started the business, it was called HR Shop. I really put together this need that I saw in the market around small and medium businesses needing help, and really good help. And also at the time, a bunch of what were really part-time mums sort of returning to the workforce after having really big HR jobs, but not wanting to come back into full-time permanent jobs. And when I started it, it was a small group of us as contractors. In the first 3 years, we had quite fast growth. We were Deloitte Fast 50 fastest growing services business in Wellington, I think, in our third year. And things were going really well. Our team had grown. We'd got some more permanent people on board, and we were helping organisations starting to be across New Zealand. We've started in Wellington originally. And that was at the time when I started to really also get a little bit disillusioned by some of the more traditional HR thinking. And I was also starting to learn about this concept of employee experience. And I think as soon as I heard this terminology and sort of started to dig into what employee experience is and how the thinking in the space is quite different to traditional HR thinking, it really got me to think about the future of what was then HR Shop. The first stage was to do a rebrand. So we rebranded from HR Shop to Humankind to really signify a move in what we were going to be focused on. And I felt like the name HR Shop was almost going to hold us back from working with both larger organizations, but also doing a much broader set of work. And I didn't really realize this at the time, but changing our name would actually, in fact, change everything. So we went from, a small group of a lot of part-time contractors into what is today a fully fledged sort of professional services businesses with all of the good things and bad things that come with that. And along my journey as well, we spun out a recruitment company called Kin, which also works with a lot of growth companies across New Zealand. And then more recently, we've spun out Employee Experience Design School. So yeah, it's been, our team has grown a lot. We've had a lot of people work with Humankind over the years. Today, our team sits at around 30 people based across Auckland, Wellington and Hawke's Bay. And it was probably about a year ago that I stepped out as the CEO.
Okay, cool. And so you mentioned the other company, Kin, was it? So that was the one you recently sold as well, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so we knew from working with lots of small and medium businesses that most companies need support with recruitment services as well. And we really wanted to create a different model for the market. So unlike most recruitment services that charge a percentage of a salary to place a role, Kin is a time and materials recruitment business. So we charge an hourly rate for services. And it worked out just so cost efficient for our clients to do that model. And also we were just desperately focused on the candidate experience being the very beginning of the employee experience, of course. Kin's really successfully operating today, but I sold my shares in that in early 2020.
Yeah, awesome. And is that kind of when you decided to make the mark to transition into working mostly in employee experience design school?
Yeah, so EX Design School was something that it did sort of come about beginning of early 2020. The original goal with it was actually we were sitting around our leadership table at Humankind thinking about how we have more impact. So we're all really driven by our purpose, which is to lead humanity at work. We desperately believe that human-centered workplaces will be the most successful workplaces into the future. And so as we have evolved our own ideas of methodology and ways of working at Humankind, taking a human-centered sort of design approach to HR, what we were seeing is that it was actually not particularly common. There was we weren't seeing many other people taking this approach, and we found that this approach and this methodology was just so transformational within Humankind. Our own business performance had just massively improved and transformed from taking an employee experience design or employee-centered design approach. And so what we wanted to do is to actually enable other people to do the same thing. So the idea was, if we were taking this approach and how effective it was for us, why wouldn't we teach other people to do this and therefore spread our purpose even more? So I launched EX Design School really as, and it was really very much a test. And I built it essentially by myself over a few weeks. I took myself away and hid away from the world and built this kind of beta product. And really from the first few people that came through the program, I kind of knew that this thing could actually have legs, and we were getting some really positive feedback. So I embarked on improving the product. I got a human-centered design expert to come and have a look at all the lessons that I created and all the resources, and we completely recut it and launched version 2, and that's what's still live today. And just of today, we've got about 100 people that have been through or currently in employee experience design school, and it has a really strong sort of community offering as well. So it's really exciting seeing others in people leadership or HR roles learning how to apply human-centered design to employee experience and just the outcomes they're getting. And actually, what's most exciting is the deep sense of satisfaction they're getting at taking a new approach and seeing how impactful this can be.
Yeah, amazing. And what kind of companies and people are you targeting with EX Design School? Are these mainly people in New Zealand or straight, already overseas in particular industries as well? Or
yeah. So when I initially built EX Design School, the person I had in mind was a role that I've held in a previous life, which is a sole charge HR professional in a growing company. And I know that role so well, and it's lonely. You don't have a team. It's also really busy, so you don't really have time to go out and source new methodology and new ideas. And also you need to be doing a great job to attract and retain great talent, because that's the number one thing for these growth organizations. So that was who I had in mind. But interesting enough, we've had people, all sorts of different roles come through EX Design School. There is a lot of that sort of head of P&C or chief people officer within a growth company type person that's in it. But also we've just welcomed today, actually, 6 people from the P&C team at TVNZ into the program. We've had multiple people from the warehouse group. We've had, people from like technology companies and manufacturing companies and government organizations. Really, this, employee experience design is really applicable to any type of people group.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really cool to hear some of those companies that have been involved. And just for people who aren't aware, what does the sort of program look like? Is that, like weekly meetings, pre-recorded courses and things? Yeah, what does that kind of help look like?
So it's kind of got 3 aspects to it. So the first is online learning lessons, so video lessons with a bunch of downloadable resources and tools. And those are kind of learn in your own time at your own pace, so available for an entire year to whoever's in the program. And people are doing that in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways, like watching them, binge watching is what a couple of people have said to me. And I'm thinking, I'm sure there's better things you could binge watch, but that's how some people are using it. And then other people are doing like a lesson a month type of approach. So that's the first part. The second part is a really engaged community. So we connect people that are in the program with each other. It's a network. We use Slack to share different resources, but also connect and have conversations about different topics that we've got going on. And then the last thing is live events. So every week we hold a community call. So we do co-working calls and we mix those up with different masterclasses and panel discussions, bringing in other external experts. So that's the program in itself. It's really a platform for people to learn and grow and connect, and it's really exciting because we've had multiple people join us now from around the world. And that was when I sort of got the idea about, I suppose, the next adventure in my career. But there's definitely scope for this sort of stuff globally, because there really is nothing else like employee experience design school anywhere.
Amazing. And I guess then we could chat a bit on Austin, because I found you in Austin a week or 2 ago, and I know you did a big trip over there and you're thinking about maybe moving there. Love to hear more about like, why did you choose to go to Austin? What were your thoughts on the ground? What kind of connections did you make, and where do you see that fitting in with your journey going forward?
Yeah, cool. Well, before I kind of talk about Austin, maybe I'll talk about a little bit about why I'm even leaving New Zealand, I think, because I've spent my entire life in New Zealand. Actually, I've always lived in Wellington and worked across Wellington and Auckland. And now to think about growing something that potentially is able to be scaled outside of New Zealand is completely new to me. And it really was getting some inquiries for an EX design school from different places around the world that kind of opened my eyes around the opportunity here. And employee experience is still a really new concept. I mean, I've been meeting leaders from some of the leading tech companies in San Francisco and New York and other places in the States, and talking to them about their understanding around employee experience and how they're approaching employee experience in their organizations. And I'm not really seeing, there's still a requirement for new ways of working and new tools and methodology. And I'm not seeing anyone really filling the space. And I have seen the growth of industries such as customer experience design and user experience design. And we know as business leaders that when we think about our customer experience and our user experience, and we involve our customers and our users in improving those things, how effective that is. And I really believe that employee experience will be, a huge industry in the future, and that employee experience design is a capability that growth companies are going to want to have in their organizations to really ensure that we're creating experiences that both leaders and employees love, and of course are better for the bottom line, essentially. So seeing this opportunity and recognizing that even around the world there wasn't really anyone filling this space made me realize that I needed to get out of New Zealand. So first thing, I actually went to South by Southwest in March, which was in Austin as well. So I've been to Austin twice this year, and going to South by was just such a perspective expanding mission. It was really, I made the decision very last minute, because I think Jacinda said we're opening the borders, and I think within 24 hours I had tickets booked to go to the States. So I didn't have much time to plan how I was going to spend my time on the ground there. but I loved that experience and the people I met and the sessions I went to at South by Southwest, and highly recommend that conference for anyone that's keen to go. And when I got back and thinking about this new company that we're about to launch, which EX Design School essentially is a beta product for. So the journey from Humankind to EX Design School, really EX Design School has been a project that we have grown within Humankind, and we've just been through a big exercise to extract that out of Humankind to create a new commercial entity, which will be what we're going to be launching over the next few months. And thinking about that, it was definitely something that I want to be a global play, and it's a new challenge. I'm learning a hell of a lot, but the first thing to do was really to get back to the States and start to understand the landscape. So when I made the decision to go to Austin, everyone's kept saying, why Austin? You could go to San Francisco, you could go to New York. I'm hearing so many incredible things and seeing so many incredible things about the startup community in Austin. There's also a lot of people leaving some of those more popular destinations to move themselves to Austin. And also I have an advisor on the ground there. So it was like one person that I knew rather than going to a place where I didn't know anyone. So I chose Austin and really decided to go on a bit of a mission to grow my network and start to understand the people and culture or HR landscape over there, and also just the startup and founder space, and whether potentially it might be a place that I end up living for a period of time. So I did take a very kind of methodical and strategic approach to my trip. I was there for a couple of weeks and did quite a bit of cold outreach before I left, and also reached out to a bunch of people on my network to see who could do introductions for me. And then I got there, and I didn't have huge amounts of meetings before I landed in Austin, but I had a few. And I also had a couple of events that I was scheduled to go to. And then really from the minute I landed, every person I met or every event I went to, I just made sure I asked for additional kind of connections, and then just quickly got meetings booked in with them and did the same. And so by the end of the 2 weeks, my diary was really full. I think I physically met, face to face over 30 people, which has then grown to far more introductions. And I'm still having Zoom calls now with people all around the US as a result of those meetings. So it wasn't quite the customer, the deep customer research piece that I definitely need to now do, but it was the foundation for what will enable that customer research. So yeah, it was really great.
Cool. Yeah, 100% making connections when you first go somewhere is probably one of the most crucial things, because the networks that open up are just incredible. And even from my perspective in Austin, there's just so much going on there. I know, like, at first when I was first landed there, walked down the streets, I thought, oh, this place seems, really quiet. There's like no one on the streets. But then it's also because the weather is so hot, people don't really, walk around the city during the daytime. It's more of a nighttime city. But once you get inside the buildings, like this place called Capital Factory, that does co-working and a bit of investments as well. Such a great place if anyone is going to Austin to check out the Capital Factory. Yeah, just so much going on there. And we even went to a VC's meetup event at a bar, and there's like over 100 startup folks. And this is just, like really good, really cool people, really great people to connect with. And it's such a contrast compared to the New Zealand ecosystem, the fact that can happen so often with such a high quantity of people. I can see it as a lot easier to move your startup more quickly and more effectively in that environment when you can just bump into the people that you need to chat to. So there's so much value over in Austin at the moment that we're seeing. And yeah, you're right, we have heard as well quite a few people leaving San Francisco and heading to Austin. So it is the sort of new emerging hub, I would say.
Yeah, I had some interesting conversations with some people on the ground. People were still saying like the reality is the depth of talent probably does still sit in places like San Francisco because the market's far more mature. But I think as a Kiwi going over and landing in a part of America where the culture is just so generous and warm and welcoming, and there is a lot going on. There's probably at least 3 or 4 startup events a week over there. And I know Casey did a webinar earlier for you guys a couple of months ago. I actually watched that pre-going to Austin. And the event that he spoke about, Fiesta, which has like 250 people at it, was on the first night I landed. So it was kind of perfect to head along to that and meet some people there before expanding the rest of the network. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, and I believe Casey is heading back there in a couple of months as well to set up parts of his startup over there. So definitely, yeah, a fair bit of activity of Kiwis heading over to Austin. And I guess on that note, another observation just from my trip last week, San Francisco as well has become so much more expensive than it used to be. Whereas Austin, like even I noticed the petrol is $2 cheaper compared to San Francisco. So I mean, is it, you know, relatively a bit cheaper over there. I mean, still, I'd say it's still quite expensive compared to New Zealand. But
I think for business owners, though, the one key thing to know is there's no state tax. There's only federal tax in Texas. So it potentially is a good place to be doing business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Awesome. So you think you will end up heading back there soon?
I mean, I'm also a mum of 3 growing boys, so I've got a family to think about. But I'm really keen to move over there for a year or so as a bit of an adventure, and also to launch my new business. But we'll see. I've got a bit of planning to do. There's keenness amongst my family.
No, that's so exciting. You'll hopefully whatever decision is made goes well. I mean, if not, you can always do trips back and forth here and there. Exactly. I know there's some more direct flights to Houston at the moment, and so that will make things a lot easier. Just diving back into growing Humankind, because I realize we've went through that quite quickly. Love to know, like what kind of challenges did you face growing that as a startup? Because obviously, you grew that quite well, 10 years in now. Just curious, what challenges did come along, if any?
I mean, I think I probably faced every challenge, and for all the founders and business owners on this call, we all know that it's definitely not, a linear journey. It's a bit of a roller coaster. I think probably my biggest lessons that I had in growing Humankind were around myself and my own leadership and growing a team and playing to your strengths. It probably
I'm not sure. Can you still see me? I think my Wi-Fi just cut out. I'm not sure. It completely just froze for me. I've just switched to my mobile data. There's in Wellington at the moment, there's major storms that happened overnight. I mean, we had flooding in parts of the house, and thunderstorms. They're probably coming back. And I did think, I might have a power cut at some point. I might just, I'll just flicker a message in case. The rain did just, a tornado in Kapiti? Really? Oh my gosh. Wellington in winter, it's not the place to be. Oh, she's got a power cut. And she's in Humankind offices in the city. So the city has a power cut. That's a pretty serious thing. I mean, luckily not me. I'm living out rurally at the moment, so I'm surprised my power is still in. I mean, if anyone watching is in central Wellington City, I'm curious if you've got a power cut right in the central area as well. I'm just gonna see if she could use mobile hotspot. So that's what I've just jumped onto. Oh wait, here we go. Hey, welcome back.
Okay, so we just had a full power cut in Wellington. Thunder, lightning, power cut. I've just had to hotspot.
Yes, I did the same. I thought my power had gone out.
That's so weird. I'm so sorry to
No,
everyone live on this.
it's,
Um,
it's
uh,
interesting news.
I can't even remember where I was at, but I think I was talking, biggest lessons. One of the things I would say is, playing to strengths. So it was probably only about 3 or 4 years ago that I just recognized like what I was really good at, which was the things that I loved. And I felt like I needed to do everything, which included a whole bunch of stuff that I really didn't like doing. And building a really strong leadership team around me, bringing in a chief operating officer who was just super strong at all the operations and internal stuff. I'm much more of probably an external CEO. And then over time, actually making KP our CEO has been just such a sensible decision, because as founders, I think we believe that we've got to do everything and hold all those roles, and it's definitely not always the case, and I think generally not best for the business if you can't let go of stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that come up often as well as your founders, that your business straight away improves a whole lot more once you do bring in someone else to kind of have another set of eyes to just manage everything. I've seen a question come through from Elizabeth. Interesting to know why you chose the USA versus other countries.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think the States has obviously just got the size. Also for employee experience, I've always looked to, Silicon Valley and the leading technology firms as people that are doing some of the most innovative stuff in employee experience, because they've got to attract these huge amounts of the top talent. So for me, it was like a really obvious decision to go to the States and not go to Australia or another place. That's probably the short answer to that one.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, just the scale in the States is honestly massive, and there's so much going on there. And like say in Austin, there's so many people you can meet and network with. It's definitely some good benefits.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna check back on what we had. Okay. So what kind of stage are you at with employee experience design school? Like, what does your team look like at the moment?
Great question. So as I mentioned, we've just extracted EX Design School out to create a new entity. The new company is actually called Excellent. So pretty soon EX Design School as a brand and name won't exist. It'll all be under Excellent. So we're going to be doing a bit of a design sprint to repackage all of that. And we're really excited to launch Excellent out into the world in the next couple of months. And that'll be the company that we want to take out into the world and really grow employee experience design as a category, actually. So the first product really will be around, helping people with learning and mindsets and accreditation in this space. But we will be moving into tools and technology once we have a foothold there first. So we're early stage. My team at the moment looks like myself, and I've got a general manager, and we're just in the process of signing a head of product or a head of experience. So very, very early stage, small team, and it's exciting to be back in startup mode.
Yeah, for sure. And so would you say you'll cut most of your involvement from Humankind and kind of let someone else take their roles there?
It's a good question. I mean, I have stepped out operationally as the CEO. So day to day, I'm not involved in Humankind anymore, but I am the only shareholder and director. So there's still a lot of responsibility that sits on me with Humankind. But we have a phenomenal team, and I'm really not needed in the day to day. So it's more of a governance role now and supporting our CEO.
No, that's awesome. And just a quick note for everyone who is still on board. I think we might have lost a couple of people just from that power cut. We took a few minutes off. But if anyone has any questions for Sam, please do chuck them in the Q&A or the chat box, and I'll keep an eye on both. We might not go all the way to 1 o'clock, because I know an hour is a long time for everyone to be on a webinar for. So if you've got anything, questions, comments, please do chuck them in now, and I will have a look at those and relay them.
I think one of the things actually I was going to talk about, Leah, today, and I mentioned this to you before, one of the big things I'm learning from growing Humankind and actually growing Kin over the last few years, and to now being back in startup mode and aiming to grow something that's global and highly scalable, is just the profound difference between growing a services business in New Zealand to even thinking about growing something that is going to be more on a global scale. And I thought that, strategy and decision making in a linear company or a services company was hard, but I have to say startup is a whole new level of hardness. And I'm sure if there's other founders on this call, you'll know what I'm talking about. But, the gravity of decisions that you make and the opportunities that you have are kind of like they're everywhere, but you really need to be super focused on how you spend your time, what you point your energy and time at versus what you don't. And I feel like decisions are often quite big swings, which could either potentially lead to complete failure or massive growth. And so the pressure of that of strategic decision making is definitely something I've noticed to be quite a change between the two business models. In saying that, I'm also like loving the thrill of all of the learning and all the different skill sets and domains that I haven't had to learn with growing a services business. So it's definitely a whole new world for those people that are in a normal growth company versus something that you want to be like in that startup growth high growth space. Two different worlds, which I didn't actually think about too hard before I started this next thing.
Yeah, I mean, how are you managing things just like on a personal level? Because I mean, honestly, it sounds like you're all over the place. You're getting so much work done. Like, is that, are you high stress levels? Are you still having time to, to pamper yourself and everything? How are you finding that? Yeah.
I don't think I've got time to necessarily pamper myself, but I definitely don't feel overly stressed right now. I absolutely love what I do. I think anyone that knows me and works with me on a regular basis will see that. Like, I have pretty high energy, and I really am passionate about the purpose that we have both at Humankind and our purpose at Excellent. Transforming the world's experience of work. That's kind of what we're all about. And I really deeply believe in the impact that we're wanting to make, and I deeply believe employees should be involved in their own design of their own employee experience and all of these things that we're working towards. So that just keeps me going. I know it's kind of cliche, but people say like when you're doing work that you love, it doesn't feel like work. I generally do feel like that. I do also have, I have mentioned that I'm a mum. I do have a pretty busy home life. I've got 3 boys who are 13, 12 and 9, and a wonderful husband who works in Humankind. So, making sure I've got time for all those special people is pretty key. But I do work a fair amount as well.
Well, hopefully, you can get it. You have a good balance there. I've just seen a couple of questions come through. A question from Pamela Bell. What would you do differently, and what trends relative to human-centered design are you seeing offshore?
What would I do differently? I suppose in my whole journey. Maybe that's what she meant. So in terms of what I would do differently, I think I would probably realize what I'm good at and what I love earlier. So I feel like I pushed on in areas that I wasn't particularly strong at for too long on my Humankind journey, and it just created stress. To be honest, probably a little bit of mild burnout, and I wasn't particularly happy for a little bit of time, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And the business wasn't performing particularly well, because when you're not happy, everything kind of results in the bottom line as well. So it really took some pretty brave discussions with some people around, sticking to what I was good at, which is most of the external facing stuff, and allowing other people to step into those other bits. And I was just so much happier almost immediately, and the business results followed. So that's probably what I would do differently, is kind of, I suppose, listen to my own instincts. What are the trends I'm seeing around human-centered design globally? It's a really interesting question. I've been meeting with heads of HR and sort of chief people officer type roles, and even speaking with, and I mentioned a few of the organizations earlier that I was talking with. Probably the most innovative person I spoke with on my entire trip, and actually probably almost to date in my journey in this space, was a woman who's working in a company that has 500 people across 31 countries, fully remote and global. She was fascinating. So she approached employee experience, or HR, with a product design lens, which is very much aligned to the employee experience methodology that we kind of teach and love. But I suppose I wouldn't say it was necessarily a trend, because it was very much a one-off conversation, but I was just so impressed with how she was thinking about things, how she was really testing ideas and continuing to iterate with her employees, and really challenging herself. Like, they have this particular organization is fully transparent on remuneration, and obviously hiring people across 31 different countries. I mean, you can only imagine the challenges of logistics, but also just even like all the different legal environments for the employee experience. Really, really tricky. But what I really saw was that she was taking a product design approach to designing that employee experience, and I loved it. I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Question here from Josh. Great to hear an update, Sam. Have you gone full circle and got Bell Gully as a customer yet?
Great question, Josh. No, not yet. Maybe I need to be banging on their door. Yeah, I'm not sure that taking an employee-led approach is how most large professional services, particularly law firms, do it. But I would love to think that was in their future. So I think most of us would know that those large partnership environments, are pretty tricky working environments for people that are in them. And I know a lot of my circles have actually worked in those big four and big professional services firms before. So yeah, maybe that's my next challenge, Josh. Thanks for the question.
What do you think about Tesla and the leaders saying, everyone come back to work now? I mean, obviously they need some help there. It's
crazy. The only thing, I mean, it is crazy. The only thing I would say is that, as long as your employee value proposition is very honest, then you're going to attract the sort of people that will want to be part of that. And I don't think Tesla's ever going to have a problem attracting really incredible talent. It'll just attract people that want to work in that type of environment. And so when we think about employee experience design, and we're talking about this a lot in our community at the moment and with clients across Humankind, everyone's focused on employee value proposition because we're trying to attract the best people and then trying to keep them, because losing team members is often one of the most expensive things an organization can go through. And you don't have to try and have an employee value proposition that matches the really funky, cool business down the road or someone in San Francisco or a company that you've seen in New York. You just have to have something that's really honest and unique and authentic to you, and then be able to speak about it. And if you can speak about it really honestly, you will attract the people that genuinely fit with you. And we talk about employee value proposition being the promise and employee experience being the reality. And our goal as business leaders, making sure that the promise and the reality, there's not too much of a gap between those two things, because that's when problems arise. So yeah, I think Tesla's Tesla, but it will still attract a whole bunch of people.
Yeah. I mean, I know especially in New Zealand there is this constant fight, especially for devs. One company trying to offer more than the other, and everyone, the prices get driven up, and there's a bit of a shortage at the moment. So it does make me wonder, if Tesla might see a bit of that going on now with employees who don't want to be in the office all the time. But I hope that my rain isn't too loud at the moment. It's just picked up a whole lot.
Crazy weather.
Yeah, crazy. If anyone else has any more questions, do chuck them in the Q&A now. Now is the time, or the chat box as well. I'm keeping an eye on that. Was there anything else, that you were keen to dive into? I mean, even advice for founders who are starting off. What would you say is, from what you've learned going into that whole startup world again?
I mean, I've learned so much. I feel like anyone that's on this call that's in business knows that growing your own business is like probably doing multiple MBAs. It is an insane learning journey. I think a couple of things come to mind for me. One is, that realizing that it is a bit of a ride and everything only lasts for a moment. So enjoying those. Dwelling too long in the troughs when they everything only lasts for a moment is quite a key kind of lesson. And then I think that probably the other thing is like trusting your own instincts. I think as business owners we quite often look for advisors or really senior kind of shiny corporate people to come in and be the silver bullet for the silver bullet for all of our problems. But the reality is that as founders and business owners, often, we know the most about our own companies, and trusting yourself is quite key, which I've definitely had to learn over time. So I think there's that, and playing to your strengths and surrounding yourself by people that are way better than you. It's definitely an approach I've taken, and I feel very lucky with this next stage of my business journey, with Excellent, to be able to just hire absolute A players, guns from day one, which when you're growing a business is everything.
Mm-hmm. So with Excellent / EX Design School, is it mainly like, do you have someone else that you're going back and forth with throughout all day every day, or is it mainly just you who's leading up?
So I've got a general manager. Her name's Catherine, and she joined me about 3 months ago, and she's an absolute legend. So I'm really stoked to have her on my team as my very first hire, and we work very, very closely together on a daily basis, both looking after our existing community of employee experience designers, the existing product, and also in the strategy and planning for what's going to be next, because we have got a huge amount of work on our plate to launch Excellent, and we've got a lot of work going into what are our go-to-market strategies, what's our product going to look like, how we're going to build our team, so many things. And Kath's come in and just been a gun across all fronts. So yeah, it's great to have her on the team.
Yeah, because I know that it is a struggle as a solo founder, trying to handle everything. So it is good to hear you've got someone else you can kind of lean to now. Amazing. So in terms of the next couple of months, is that just head down, working lots, figuring out, oh no, are you frozen? Am I frozen?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, there was a
I think we might be cutting out, Lilia.
Yeah, I'll go. They have this weather. Yeah. So yeah, what does the next?
Unless there's any more questions, is there any other final questions?
Nothing's come through at the moment, no.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for having me today, Lilia. I've really enjoyed meeting with you in person in Austin, and I think what you guys are doing to help Kiwi founders go out into the world is really cool, and really happy if there's anyone on this call that wants to connect with me, please just connect on LinkedIn. Yeah, just really appreciate your support, and thanks for inviting me on.
No, thanks so much for coming on board. I look forward to seeing where you are in a couple of months, whether that be Austin and how great your business is growing. I'm sure it's going to take off really well. So yeah, we'll check in a couple of months. But thanks so much for being on with us today. This webinar has been recorded, so if anyone wants to rewatch later, we'll be posting it up on LinkedIn and the website territory3.community. But yeah, thanks so much for everyone for tuning in. And thank you to Sam. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Cool. See you guys.
See you later.